Welcome to First Downs, Fourth Downs, and Touchdowns today. We're going to be talking about South Carolina versus Notre Dame in the TaxSlayer Gator Bowl. I'm going to be predicting this game, breaking some things down. Man, number 19 South Carolina. I haven't seen that ever since I started getting into football. I don't think I've ever seen that. I think this is the highest I've seen South Carolina ever since I've got into football versus number 21 Notre Dame. So a top 25 matchup, two close teams. Both teams are they started this season weak and finishing the season strong. Shane Beamer in 2021 was a feel-good story to most of the country, but this year he solidified he can do great things at South Carolina, even after starting 1-2 at the beginning of the year. Now, I will admit, I had my doubts. I truly had my doubts. I thought we had to win at least two of our games at the beginning of the season, either upsetting Arkansas or Georgia to have a chance at an 8-win season, but I was wrong. Happy I was wrong, but I was wrong. On the other hand, for Notre Dame, people thought Marcus Freeman was not the guy. They had their doubts, and that was that volume of haters. The noise went up after they started 0-2, losing to Ohio State and Marshall, where Tyler Buckner was injured in that game. Last time we saw both teams play each other was when South Carolina won in South Bend during its Black Magic season. I think Beamer will bring back that uniform for this game. I think it'll be more like a throwback uniform because of the circumstances. I really hope he does. Let's talk about South Carolina first and foremost. Their key players. We're just going to go over a few. Spencer Rattler, 66.6 completion rate on the season, 16 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, 2,780 yards. Now, when you think of Spencer Rattler, you can either think of two things. You can think he was a bust, always been overrated. The first two seasons at Oklahoma, he just had the right people around him, and then once pressure really started coming on, he collapsed, and he hasn't been good since. Or, on the other school of thought, you can think that something just wasn't clicking for him. Either it's the coaching scheme at Oklahoma, Marcus Satterfield's offensive scheme, or just the players around him, them not clicking here. But I think he is the guy. I'm on the positive train of thought. Spencer Rattler can lead us to success. He reminds me, because he's not to the level of Brett Favre, but like in essence, like I feel like Spencer could be like a gunslinger, just throwing high touchdowns, high interceptions. So I think Spencer, if I saw him in the NFL, I think he would be like Brett Favre. But that's if he plays in. Well, I don't even know what he's doing in the whether he's deciding to go to the NFL or not. But I feel like that's who he reminds me of as a quarterback in the NFL. Another player, Juice Wells, 898 yards on the season for 6 touchdowns. FCS from, was it James Madison? It might have been James Madison. I'm sorry, I don't remember, but he's been our best receiver by far this year. Just incredible catches, incredible route running, incredible speed. What can you say? DeCarrion Joyner can be used as a passer, rusher, or receiver. It worked in North Carolina against Duke's Mayo Bowl. I mean, he's just a multi-use guy, just like Jaheim Bell was. Then we have Nate Adkins. He's only had 3 receptions for 90 yards on the season. Ooh, I got to put a space there. There we go. Yes, like I said, 3 receptions for 90 yards, but he's our only tight end, which we'll get into in a minute. But on defense, we can't forget defense. Marcellus Dial, 41 total tackles and 3 interceptions. He'll be important because a lot of the secondary has opted out for draft, etc. And Jordan Birch, 56 total tackles and 3.5 sacks. Speaking of people out for the bowl game, South Carolina players that opted out. We have defensive tackle Zach Pickens, NFL draft. Cam Smith, in my opinion, the best cornerback in the league. I mean, not the league, the country. Because, some people think Keely Ringo's the best, but I think Cam Smith is, but bias, whatever. It doesn't matter. Defensive back Devontae Reed, declared for the NFL draft. Marshawn Lloyd, transfer portal. Jaheim Bell, transfer portal to Florida State. Travion Kenyon, stepping away from football. And Austin Stogner, transfer portal back to Oklahoma. In case you didn't know, those last 3 names were all tight ends out of our 4 starting this year. Or at least on the roster. That's a worry spot. That is definitely a worry spot when we only have one tight end. Shane Beamer said it in the conferences, in Jacksonville, they're going to have to make up a scheme, and they can't have Adkins playing every single snap because eventually he's going to get tired. So it's going to be interesting to see what Shane Beamer and company comes up with. Then we have Jalen Brooks with an off-field issue we don't know about. If it's a personal issue, just give him his privacy. And Josh Vann, who got injured in the Clemson game. Yeah, the tight end position just scared. I want to go back and focus on that. Because this year, not only have we had passing tight ends, or not passing, but receiving tight ends, catching balls, Austin Stogner, Nate Atkins with that one. Remember that one-handed catch from Clemson? Arguably the best catch for Carolina in the season. Jaheim Bell's like a Swiss Army knife, like I said. Trayvon Kenyon, I didn't really see him this much this year, but it just adds to the fact. I mean, not only that, but I mean, just Jaheim Bell ran for South Carolina when CBS and Marshawn Lloyd were out. They're both the pass blockers because our offensive line has had some issues this year. So having a big tight end like Stogner or Adkins coming in there to block really helped us out this year. Shane Beamer has declined on who will be coaching and play calling for the offense. Now I understand why, because, let's say the running backs coach is calling it. Well, Notre Dame can look in that and be like, okay, this might be a run-heavy offense. Or if a wide receivers coach, okay, they're going to target a few of the wide receivers. So I understand why he does it, but I am curious to see who will be. So, another thing, speaking of just like entire positions being out, not only with tight end, but our secondary and just our defensive backs in general, Cam Smith and Devontae Reed. Devontae Reed, I think, came from, was it Eastern? It was Eastern Central Michigan, I think. I think it was Central Michigan. Don't quote me on that. But he was a great player this year. Cam Smith is, in my opinion, the best cornerback in the league. Not the league. Man, I keep on saying that. In the country. Excuse my error. I'm a little tired right now. And then, but we do have a chance for some lesser experienced defensive backs to play, like Emory Floyd and Kayjon Banks. So it's good to see what they're made of and getting them some game time so they know what to do next, what to work on in spring practice and next season. So now I've talked about South Carolina. I can't just be ranting about South Carolina. I got to talk about Notre Dame some. So I'm going to talk about Notre Dame. We're going to start with the players opting out for the bowl game. Tight end Michael Mayer, NFL draft, arguably the best tight end in college football this year. QB Drew Pine, after Tyler Buckner got injured in Week 2 against Marshall, Drew Pine came in and led that team to an 8-4 season, but he's left. Cornerback Jaden Bellamy, transfer portal. Defensive line Jacob Lacey, transfer portal, who had 5 total tackles and 2 sacks this year. And then Isaiah Foskey. He went to the NFL draft, but he has been arguably the best defensive player. I don't even think it's arguable on this team, or Notre Dame's defense. 45 total tackles, 11 sacks, 1 forced fumble. So Spencer will definitely have a lot less pressure now that he's not playing in this game. Speaking, I know I've said Tyler Buckner's name a few times, but I'll finally say it straight. Tyler Buckner is returning from injury and will be the new starting QB. When he played, he had a completion rate of 56% and threw for 378 yards and 2 interceptions. Obviously not great stats, but they were in both losses, so take it as you will. Some Notre Dame key players I'd like to talk about is cornerback Houston Griffith, 33 total tackles, safety Brandon Joseph with 30 total tackles, 1 interception and 1 forced fumble, lining back J.D. Bertrand, 74 total tackles, 2 sacks, and running back Chris Tyree, 95 attempts for 423 yards and 5 touchdowns, rushing and receiving combined. So I've talked about players on South Carolina. I've talked about players on Notre Dame. I can't just... Players in general, individually, don't make up the whole game. So I'm going to get some leading questions that you might have about this game right now. So the first one I will say is, can Notre Dame's rushing lead them to victory? They run the ball on average 41 times a game. That's a lot. South Carolina gives up around 200 rushing yards a game and hasn't played to the level needed. The rush defense this year has been pretty atrocious at a lot of times. Despite this, though, South Carolina still won their last games, even when giving up 200-plus yards on Clemson rushing and 100-plus yards on Tennessee. Now, those stats might not usually add up, but Can South Carolina offset this deficit with a high-scoring offense? That's what they did against Clemson. I think Spencer Rattler had 360 yards. 360 yards against Clemson, 438 and 6 touchdowns against Tennessee. You can run 1,000 yards on me, and if I score 63 points, I think I'll be okay. Of course, not actually 1,000 yards, but you get what I mean. So they can either offset the run game if their run defense does not play to the level needed, or they can get pounded into a loss. So I guess we'll see. The next question I want to talk about is, can Spencer Rattler be the ignition for this offense? This year, at the beginning, I'm pretty sure Beamer stated, Spencer Rattler does not need to be Superman for us to win games. We have other players. However, in our 2 biggest wins, Spencer Rattler was Superman. So, this is why I'm asking this question. Like I said, both wins against top 10 teams, Rattler lit up the defenses. I'll throw out some stats for you. 438 yards and 6 touchdowns against Tennessee, 360 yards and 3 touchdowns against Clemson. If he did that all year, he'd be the Heisman winner by far. Not even a competition. If we ignore a lot of those interceptions, because there's quite a good few. But Spencer, we can't look beside his past stats. We have to look at the stats he will make in this game. It'll be hard to put up the stats like he did and play to that level when he's missing key players to look for, like Jakeem Bell, Marshawn Lloyd, Austin Stogner, and Josh Vann. Those are all very great offensive players he passed to a lot this year. Make up a pretty good chunk of the offense this year passing. So Spencer, I would say, if I was Spencer and I had to pick like one person I need to connect to, it'd be Juice Wells. They had 100-plus yards together during the last 2 wins of the game, which is the best we've seen South Carolina's offense, and arguably not just this year, in the past 2-3 years. Those games, I know it's almost like a repeating thing. Like I use that as a reference in every single time, but that's just how almost perfect of what we need if we want to, get far, become a potentially national contending team. We want to do stuff like this. So a stunning performance, if he connects with Juice Wells, targets Nate Adkins, ignites this offense. Could help him if he wants to leap to the NFL. If I were Spencer, I wouldn't for money, because you're getting some NIL money, but I don't know his money. I don't know his money right now. I think he'd make more money if he stayed another year, developed, put up a way better performance, and then he could be a first-round pick. That's what I would do. But then again, it's Spencer's decision. We'll wait till he announces it. Now, another question I'll ask is, which team will be able to adjust the best to their circumstances? This is the big one for me. Because think about this. Notre Dame had their first-string quarterback coming back after being injured and not playing for a long time. They're also missing one of the best tight ends in the country with Mayer. But SC is missing a lot of offensive names too. I've already said this. And even missing some secondary players up front and in the secondary. And they only have one tight end in the depth chart. How thin is that? That's absolutely crazy. Just one tight end. I don't know what the scheme is going to be. I don't know. It's going to have to be something crazy for it to work. I hope they make something up. So it's kind of like... Here's an analogy. When you go to a new school, you have no idea what you're doing. I know where's the bathroom at, where's your science class at, where's your math class, where's the cafeteria. So think about it as both of those teams going to a new school. Which one can get the most comfortable and know what they're doing first? I think the team that will get comfortable first, get settled into the game, that will be the team that wins. Now, final question. This isn't as important. It's a hard and seemingly unrealistic question. But due to the circumstances, I will ask it. What fan base cares for this game more? Now, the reason I ask this is because, depending on my answer, maybe at the game there'll be more home field advantage. And, with this close of a game, I think you need every advantage that counts. So let's look at the circumstances of Notre Dame and South Carolina. 2021, Brian Kelly led them to an 11-2 season. The year before, a college football playoff spot. fans don't look like at this season as a highlight. I mean, I'm not a Notre Dame fan myself, but I'd be pretty disappointed going 8-4 this year. Even though I know there are good things to come, I still look at this season and I'm not satisfied as I would be 1 or 2 years ago. But South Carolina fans, I can conclude, are ecstatic. Two top 10 wins in the first time in program history. A win over in-state rival Clemson for the first time in 7 years, breaking their 40-game home streak. I still laugh about that to this day. First time having a chance for a 9-win season since 2017 under Muschamp. Sorry. With the circumstances around both histories of the program, and the fact that South Carolina has been worse than Notre Dame in the past, I think South Carolina fans, along with being closer to Jacksonville, are much more hyped for this game. So there's going to be a big turnout for Gamecocks fans, and this will be like a home field advantage for South Carolina. That's my prediction. So with all this being said, keep in mind, these are just my final thoughts and score predictions. I think this game will be a highlight. I believe it's the only game on 3:30 on Friday, December 30th. It will be getting national attention. Both teams need this win. Notre Dame needs to prove they're still a team that can fight and is good and beat an SEC team on the rise. South Carolina needs to prove that they are a team to beat next year. Because, I mean, you have Georgia. You have Florida, which is looking up and coming. You have Tennessee. I mean, it's tough. You know, you want to show players, you want to show people in the transfer portal that this is the place to be. South Carolina. You can win here. Not just with your culture, but with like your players too. So with this, I will say Notre Dame at this time is favored by 2.5 points with an over-under of 51.5. I think South Carolina wins 30-28 in a very close back-and-forth game, and I'm taking the over at 58 points. So that's my prediction for the game. It's a close one. It's pretty It's very similar to my Clemson one because I think it's just going to be a very close game. I think both teams will struggle at times. Both teams will be going on fire at times. It's going to be a great game. I really hope I'm not wrong, or hope we don't get blown out or something, but I think this is going to be a great game. So, keeping that in mind, this is first downs, fourth downs, and touchdowns. Thank you for listening today. Go Gamecocks. We are the team of South Carolina. Hopefully we can bring in a 9-win season. Have a great day. Go Gamecocks.